There are only two reasons you're getting a 419 token mismatch response. You're either sending an expired CSRF token or not sending the token at all, or Laravel cannot find your active session. That's either because the session has been destroyed on the server, or most likely you're not including the credentials, aka cookies, which contain the Laravel session ID, which is used to find your session on the server. No cookie, no session, you get a token mismatch response. Now here I have a login function, which gets a CSRF cookie and then makes a post request to the login endpoint with correct credentials. However, if I click login, we get a 419 token mismatch response. If we look at the code, it's obvious we're not sending an X CSRF token header. That's obvious, but that's not where you should start your debugging. The first thing you should look at is whether or not the Sanctum CSRF cookie request sets a CSRF token cookie. You do that by going to Application, Cookies, and look in this list. If there are no cookies here, you'll go ahead and inspect the CSRF cookie request. You look under Response Headers, and you should have an Access Control Allow Credentials header. If it's missing, like it is here, you'll go ahead and open your Laravel course file and make sure Supports Credentials is set to True. This will tell Laravel that it's okay to send cookies to origins in the Allowed Origins list. Now, if we try again, look at Application Cookies, we still have no cookies, but if we inspect the Response Headers, we do have an Access Control Allow Credentials header set to True, which means we can move to our second step, which is ensuring that the front-end request includes the credentials, aka cookies. So we'll go here to our Sanctum CSRF cookie request and set with credentials to True. Let's try again, log in, application, and we still have no cookies. What the actual fuck? The front end says include the credentials, the server says it's okay to receive credentials. Why aren't those cookies being set? Well, let's inspect the Sanctum CSRF cookie request. If we look under the Cookies tab, we see this yellow/orange background. This is never good. If we hover over the info icon, it says this attempt to set a cookie via a set cookie header was blocked because its domain attribute was invalid with regards to the current host URL. And this is why when you read the Laravel docs, it says something in the lines of the SPA and API must live on the same top-level domain. That's because LUKS cookies cannot be shared across different domains. In our case, even if the SPA and Laravel API are on the same top-level domain, localhost, because the session domain is set to test.com, the cookies cannot be set. What we need to do is open our env file and make sure the session domain is either set to null or localhost. I'll save, go in the browser, refresh, log in, go to Application, Cookies, and here they are. What's missing now is us sending the CSRF token header. I have this getCookie function we can use. We'll go here and say X CSRF token, getCookie CSRF token. I'll save, go in the browser, log in, and we still get a 419 response. Let's inspect the request. We'll look at our request headers, and we are sending the CSRF token header. So how come do we have a mismatch? Well, we are sending the correct token, but Laravel needs to compare the token we are sending with the token stored in the active session. But to find that active session, Laravel needs the session ID, which it gets from the cookies. Here is our session ID. But if we look at our request headers, we are not sending any cookies. There is no cookie header. The reason for that is because we are not including the credentials. So we need to grab this, paste it here, refresh, log in. We no longer get a 419 response. And if we look at the login request under the request headers, we see the cookie header, which has the Laravel session ID, which is used to find the active session on the server. So to reiterate, if you're getting a token mismatch response, you're most likely not sending the CSRF token at all, in which case you'll want to check your application cookies and make sure you have both the Laravel session and the CSRF token cookie. If the cookies are there, but you still get a token mismatch response, make sure the cookies are sent in the request. You look at the request headers, you should have a cookie header with the CSRF token and Laravel session ID. Now finally, just for fun, let's jump into the verify CSRF token middleware to see how it works. I'll go straight through the handle function, And here we have a bunch of checks that skip the token verification. If it's a reading request, so if it's a GET request, the token is not verified. If we are running the test, the token is not verified. If the request path is in the accept array, the token is not verified. Otherwise, the tokens must match. In which case, we get the token from the request, and then we compare it with the one stored in the session. If they do not match, we get a token mismatch exception. So we get our 419 token mismatch response. So remember, check that the cookies are set, then check the login request to make sure you are sending the cookies, and also the CSRF token header.